Mech. Hitting a Nazi is always good, Brooksy. I agree. Sorry, I ain't backing out on this one. Punching a Nazi is always good. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why we played three different versions of it happening to music. There's no moral debate, no quandary. I agree. Do it like it, and then in construction, if Nazi, then violence is justified. Liberals have always had this base paradox of their anti-ideology tolerance of limited intolerance. If sponsor isn't actively doing anything, then we aren't justified in physically stopping him from doing anything, no matter no matter that he now admits that he won't be going public without protection as a result, which is a good thing. I agree. That is why leftists are better at fighting Nazis. That's why it wasn't Weimer liberalism but Stalinist leftism that destroyed Nazism. All right. Now we gotta be a little bit.
It's a risk reward thing, right? If you're willing to do
stretching.
if you're willing to do the time, if you get busted, which I think a lot of people are, it's worth punching people like Richard Spencer in the face.
Right. I mean, but that's kind of like my general feeling about the Black Bloc. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it because I do question. I got my start, the first protests I went to, and I was, like 14, was like, were globalization type protests in the early aughts where, those guys would be there and they would, they'd break a Starbucks window or whatever. In some ways it's like, if I'm not doing that, I don't want to advocate for other people doing that. But I'm also not interested in like pearl clutching about it. I think that if you're going to go out and, this is the other paradox that also happened during the campaign. I mean, people really started to confront Trump supporters. And then, liberals who were the most like freaked out about the sort of fascist threat of Trump. And this is a extraordinary image of something that happened in D.C. over the weekend, which is up on screen right now, of a limo that was torched. We the people spray painted on it. This is another Black Bloc move. But, people going and physically confronting Trump protesters. And then the same liberals that did the like, these are fascists, all of a sudden we're like, well, I don't know, guys. You got to respect people's freedom of speech. I mean, look, if we are dealing with fascism and we're dealing with things that are fundamentally dangerous to humanity, there's always been a confrontational kinetic response on some level. So, I certainly don't condemn the Black Bloc. I don't praise it or agree with it unconditionally, but I am definitely not going to sit back here and condemn them. And I certainly don't condemn the guy that punched Richard Spencer in the face. I support it 100%. And I would watch and I would look at, Natasha Leonard. She wrote a piece in The Nation. She said, if you like that video, then you have to thank the Black Bloc because that's who did it. And, it's a group of people that protect their identity. They're willing, that's why they're disguised, because they're out to break laws. And it's often people, and and inside their own cell structures, they encourage people who are frankly white, who don't have criminal records, who don't have an outstanding, immigration issue. There are ways of exercising privileges you have. And let me tell you something. If exercising your privilege is to punch Richard Spencer in the face, that makes you like Ronnie Casseroles, who was one of the founders of the Ubuntu Sisek and the African National Congress's armed wing. So I think it's clear to the people that we should be, at a bare minimum, not condemning in today's environment.
And at most, just sharing the videos because it's funny.
And by the way, Matt, really quickly, what were the criminal charges that people are getting pressed with in D.C.?
Oh, I've seen, what is it, federal riot charges?
Federal riot charges could carry up to 10 years in prison. So there is a defense fund for people involved,
which is insane.
Which is insane. And there's a bill in Indiana state legislature right now which literally says that police can use any means necessary to stop a protest if it blocks traffic. That literally functionally means that you could murder somebody for doing a nonviolent sit-in at an intersection.
There is a bill in North Dakota that means to move liability from the motorist to the person on the road, which is a basically run-over protesters bill.
It's a run-over protesters bill. And look, the reality is if you come in with an unpopular mandate, you propose a wave of legislation, and everything is on the table. You know, there's a bill in Congress now that will take conception to the point of fertilization. So what do you have to do when they know that this is going to be met with protest? This isn't just going to be met with Chuck Schumer going on the Senate floor and saying, oh, we condemn it. People need to protest. People need to be out there. I think in an American context, historically, the most effective are nonviolent direct actions. We see that in North Dakota. We see that going back to the civil rights movement. We see that with climate protesters on Keystone. So what do they have to do? They have to criminalize it. And this was another reason why, it's like, again, this is another reason why a conversation about BDS matters in the United States, regardless of where you are in the Israel-Palestine debate. Regardless of whether you support two states or one state bilateral democracy or you're more or less critical, when you move to criminalize BDS, which is a nonviolent movement, you can disagree with it, you can hate its aims, blah, 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 but it is a nonviolent movement that is saying we need to exercise economic and cultural pressure to change a policy. That was the harbinger of what we're about to see here.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.